hello, my dear friend. Come sit with me one more time. Tonight, we're going to talk about something that most people avoid, something that frightens us, something we push away. But tonight, in this safe, quiet space, we're going to talk about death. Now, don't be afraid. The Stoics weren't afraid of death. They thought about it every day. Not morbidly, not with dread, but with clarity, with acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This was not meant to depress. It was meant to liberate. When we remember that our time is limited, everything changes. The petty arguments seem silly. The grudges seem pointless. The fear of taking risk, it dissolves. Because what's the worst that can happen? We're all heading to the same place eventually. The question is, how will we live until we get there? Seneca said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. Every day, a complete life. Every moment, fully lived." Tonight I'll tell you about a warrior who faced death on the battlefield and learned what it means to truly live, and a grandmother who prepared for her death with such grace that she taught her whole family how to say goodbye, and a young man diagnosed with a fatal illness who discovered that dying can teach us how to live. 3 stories about death. 3 stories about mortality. 3 stories about the legacy we leave, not in monuments or wealth, but in how we lived and how we loved. Breathe deeply now. This is not sad. This is freeing. Listen. There was once a warrior named Cassius. He had fought in many battles, seen many friends fall, carried many scars on his body and in his heart. He was not young anymore. His hair had turned gray. His hands sometimes trembled when he held his sword. But he was still strong, still capable, still afraid. You see, Cassius had a secret. For all his courage in battle, for all the enemies he had faced, he was terrified of death. Not the pain of dying, but the nothingness, the end, the final darkness. He would lie awake at night, his heart racing, thinking about it. Someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next battle, he would cease to exist. And that thought, it haunted him. One autumn, word came that enemy forces were approaching, a large army, well-trained, well-armed. The city would need every soldier, every warrior, even the old ones, even the ones whose hands trembled. Cassius strapped on his armor, picked up his sword, and marched with the others to the field where they would make their stand. The night before the battle, Cassius couldn't sleep. He walked through the camp, past the fires where young soldiers laughed and told stories, past the tents where men wrote letters to families they might never see again. And he found himself at the edge of camp, where an old philosopher sat alone, watching the stars. The philosopher's name was Demetrius. He was not a soldier. He had come with the army as an advisor to the general. But tonight, he sat alone, peaceful, calm, as if tomorrow was just another day. Cassius sat down beside him. How can you be so calm? Cassius asked. Tomorrow we might die. Demetrius smiled, a gentle smile. Yes, he said, we might. Or we might not. Either way, the stars will still shine. The wind will still blow. The world will continue. Our fear, or our peace, changes nothing about that. But doesn't it frighten you? Cassius pressed. The thought of ending, of not being here anymore? Demetrius was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Tell me, Cassius, before you were born, were you afraid? Before I was born? Number? I didn't exist. Exactly, Demetrius nodded. You didn't exist. And it didn't bother you at all. Death. Death is just returning to that same state. The same peaceful non-existence you experienced for billions of years before you were born. Why should it frighten you now? Cassius sat with that, thought about it. But I'll lose everything. My memories, my experiences, the people I love, all of it, gone. No, Demetrius said softly, you won't lose them, because when you're dead, you won't be there to experience loss. Loss is something the living feel. The dead, they feel nothing. They want nothing. They lack nothing. They are beyond all suffering. He pointed at the stars. See those stars? Some of them died millions of years ago. Their light is still reaching us, still beautiful, still meaningful. When you die, the light you created in life, the love you gave, the kindness you showed, that light continues. It reaches others. It matters, even when you're gone. But what if I die tomorrow? Cassius whispered. What if I never get to do the things I planned? To say the things I meant to say? Demetrius turned to look at him. Really look at him. Then you should say them tonight. Do them tonight. Live tonight as if it's your last night. Because it might be. For any of us. Not just soldiers before battle. Any person. Any day. We are all, always, one breath away from the end. That sounds terrifying, Cassius said. Does it? Demetrius asked. Or does it sound freeing? If you knew tonight was your last night, would you spend it worrying about tomorrow? Or would you spend it here, now, looking at these stars, feeling this cool breeze, being alive? Something shifted in Cassius then. Something loosened in his chest. He looked up at the stars, really looked at them. And for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about death. He was thinking about this moment, this breath, this beautiful, ordinary, precious moment of being alive. The Stoics have a practice, Demetrius continued. Every morning, they imagine it's their last day. Not to be morbid, but to be awake, to remember what matters, to live fully. Because if today might be your last day, you don't waste it on petty things. You don't hold grudges. You don't postpone love. You live. Cassius nodded slowly. So, you're not afraid of dying tomorrow? No, Demetrius said, I'm not, because I've lived today, fully, completely. I watched the sunrise. I ate my bread and tasted it. I spoke with friends. I sat under these stars. If I die tomorrow, I die having lived today. That's enough. That's more than enough." They sat in silence for a while, just two men, under infinite stars, on the edge of battle, on the edge of death, on the edge of life. And somehow, in that silence, Cassius found peace. The battle came the next day. It was fierce, bloody, chaotic. And in the midst of it, Cassius found himself surrounded. 3 enemy soldiers closing in. This was it. This was the moment he had feared his whole life. The moment of his death. But something strange happened. He wasn't afraid. He raised his sword, not with terror, but with acceptance, with clarity. He had lived yesterday. He had watched the stars. He had made his peace. If this was the end, then this was the end, and it was okay. He fought, not with the desperate fear of a man trying to avoid death, but with the calm focus of a man who had already accepted it. And maybe that's why, when the dust settled, he was still standing, wounded, exhausted, but alive. The battle was won. The city was saved. Cassius survived. But something in him had died that day. Not his body, but his fear, his terror of the end. He had faced death, really faced it, and he had discovered it wasn't the monster he thought it was just the end of a story, and every story ends. That's what makes the middle parts matter. After that day, Cassius lived differently. He didn't wait to say, "I love you." He didn't postpone joy. He didn't waste time on anger or resentment, because he knew, truly knew, that any day might be his last. And that knowledge, it didn't make him afraid. It made him alive. Years later, when Cassius was very old, lying in his bed, breathing his last breaths, his family gathered around him. They were crying, holding his hands, and Cassius, he smiled, a peaceful smile. "Don't be sad," he whispered. "I've lived, fully, completely. I've loved you all. I've seen the stars. I've tasted bread. I've felt the wind. I've been here, really here. And now I'm tired, and it's time to rest. That's all death is, rest, after a long, full day." And with that, he closed his eyes, and he was gone. But the light he had created, the love he had given, the way he had lived after he stopped fearing death, that remained. That continues even now. Now let me tell you about Elena. She was a grandmother, 78 years old. She'd lived a good life, a full life. She had raised 4 children, buried a husband she loved, welcomed 12 grandchildren into the world. She had laughed and cried and worked and rested and loved deeply. Pause, 3 seconds. And now she was dying. Pause, 4 seconds. The doctors had told her 6 months ago, cancer, aggressive, untreatable. She had maybe 3 months left, maybe 4 if she was lucky. Her children wanted her to fight, to try experimental treatments, to rage against the dying of the light. But Elena, she had other plans. "I'm 78 years old," she told them gently. "I've had 78 years. That's more than many people get. I'm not going to spend my last months in hospitals, fighting a battle I can't win. I'm going to spend them living." Her children didn't understand at first. How could she be so calm, so accepting? Didn't she want more time, more years, more life? Of course she did. But she also understood something they were still learning. That wanting something you can't have, that's suffering. And she had no interest in suffering through her final days. So Elena made a plan, a beautiful plan. She would spend her remaining time saying goodbye. Not sad goodbyes, but complete goodbyes, whole goodbyes. She would tie up the loose ends of her life. She would say the things that needed saying. She would leave nothing unsaid, nothing undone. She started with her children. One by one, she invited them to her home, made them tea, sat with them in her garden where the roses bloomed, and she talked to them, really talked to them. To her oldest son, Marcus, she said, "I'm proud of you. I know I didn't say it enough when you were young. I was always correcting you, always pushing you to do better. But I want you to know, I see who you became. A good father, a kind husband, a man of integrity. I'm proud," Marcus cried. He had waited his whole life to hear those words. And now that his mother was dying, finally, he heard them. "Why didn't you tell me before?" he asked through his tears. Elena smiled sadly. "Because I thought I had time. I thought someday, later, when things are less busy. But there is no someday, my son. There is only today. And I'm telling you today." To her daughter Sophia, she said, "I'm sorry. For the times I wasn't there. For the times I chose your brothers over you. For the times I made you feel like you had to be perfect. You didn't. You were always enough, just as you were." Sophia had carried that pain for 40 years, the feeling of never being quite good enough for her mother. And now, in these final weeks, her mother was giving her the gift of release, of healing, of closure. To her youngest son, Thomas, she said, "It's okay that you're different, that you chose a different path, that you didn't become what I expected. I love you, not for who I wanted you to be, but for who you are." And to her daughter, Isabella, she said, "Thank you for being here, for taking care of me, for sacrificing your time. I see it. I appreciate it. You don't have to prove your love to me. I already know." One by one, she spoke to each of her children. She said the things that needed saying. She healed the old wounds. She released the old resentments. She gave them completion. Then she turned to her grandchildren, the little ones who didn't really understand what was happening, and the older ones who understood too well. She spent time with each of them, listened to their stories, told them stories of their parents when they were young, passed down the family history, the family wisdom. To her oldest granddaughter, Maria, who was 16 and angry at the world, Elena said, "Life is short, my dear, shorter than you think. Don't waste it being angry. Don't waste it holding grudges. Forgive quickly, love deeply, be here, really here. That's the secret." Maria didn't understand then, but years later, when she was older, when she had lost people of her own, she would remember, and she would understand. Elena also wrote letters, dozens of letters, to each of her children, to each of her grandchildren, letters to be opened on their wedding days, on the births of their children, on their 30th birthdays, on the hard days when they would need her wisdom. She couldn't be there in body, but she could be there in words, in love, in memory. She also gave away her possessions, not randomly, but thoughtfully. Her wedding ring to Sophia, her husband's watch to Marcus, her recipe book to Thomas, who loved to cook, her garden tools to Isabella, who had always admired her roses. Each item, a piece of her love, a piece of her legacy. And she planned her funeral, every detail, the music, the flowers, the readings. She even wrote her own eulogy, not because she was morbid, but because she wanted her family to know this is not a tragedy. This is a completion. This is a life well lived, coming to its natural end. As the weeks passed, Elena grew weaker. The pain increased, but her peace remained. She had done the work. She had said the things. She had loved completely. She was ready. One evening, all her children and grandchildren gathered in her room. She was very weak now. Breathing was difficult, but she smiled at them. That same warm smile she had given them their whole lives. "Don't be sad," she whispered. "I'm not sad. I've had a beautiful life. I've loved you all so much. And now I'm tired. So very tired. And it's time to rest." Her youngest grandson, only 6 years old, asked, "Grandma, are you scared?" Elena looked at him with such tenderness. "No, my darling, I'm not scared. Do you know why? Because I've lived, really lived. I've said everything I needed to say. I've loved everyone I needed to love. There's nothing left undone, nothing left unsaid. I'm complete. And when you're complete, death is not scary. It's just the next thing." She closed her eyes then, surrounded by love, surrounded by family, surrounded by the people who mattered most, and slowly, gently, like a leaf falling from a tree in autumn, she let go. At her funeral, there were tears. Of course there were tears. But there was also gratitude, because Elena had given them a gift, the gift of a good death, a conscious death, a death that taught them how to live. She had shown them that death doesn't have to be fought. It doesn't have to be denied. It can be accepted, prepared for, even welcomed when the time comes, when the life has been lived, when the love has been given. Marcus stood at the funeral and read from his mother's letter, the one she had left for this day. It said, "Don't mourn that I'm gone. Celebrate that I was here, and let my death teach you what my life tried to teach you. Say the things, do the things, love the people. Don't wait, don't postpone. Don't assume you have time. You don't. None of us do. Live now, love now, be complete now, so that when your time comes, you can go peacefully, just like I did." And her family, they carried that lesson forward. They said, "I love you" more often. They forgave more quickly. They held grudges less. They were present more, because Elena had shown them that how you die teaches people how to live. And now, let me tell you about David. He was 28 years old, young, healthy, full of plans, full of dreams, full of time. Or so he thought. David worked in an office, a job he didn't particularly love, but it paid well. It was stable. It was fine. He told himself he'd do it for a few more years, save money, then he'd travel, write that book he'd always wanted to write, learn to paint, spend time with his parents, fall in love, really live someday later when he had time. Then one Tuesday, an ordinary Tuesday, David went to the doctor for a routine checkup, just a physical, nothing serious. But the doctor found something, ordered more tests, and 2 weeks later, David sat in that same office, hearing words that changed everything. It's cancer, aggressive, stage 4. We can try treatment, but honestly, you're looking at maybe 6 months, maybe a year if we're lucky. I'm sorry. David walked out of that office in a daze. 6 months, maybe a year. All his plans, all his some days, all his laters, gone, just gone. That night, he sat in his apartment, alone, and he felt rage, pure rage. This wasn't fair. He was 28. He hadn't lived yet. He hadn't done the things. He hadn't had time. He called his parents, told them. They cried. He called his sister, told her. She cried. He called his best friend, told him. Everyone cried. Everyone said the same things. Fight it. Don't give up. You'll beat this. But David knew. He had seen the doctor's face. This wasn't a battle he could win. For 2 weeks, David spiraled. He didn't go to work, didn't answer calls, didn't eat. He just sat, thinking about all the things he would never do, all the places he would never see, all the life he would never live. Then one morning, he woke up, and something had shifted. He looked at the clock. 7:42 a.m. He had woken up. He was alive. Today, right now. And suddenly, a thought came to him. A strange thought. A liberating thought. I'm going to die. Soon. That's certain. But I'm not dead yet. I'm alive. Today, right now. So, what am I going to do with today? He got out of bed, made coffee, really made it, paid attention to the smell, the warmth of the cup in his hands, the taste. When was the last time he had actually tasted his coffee? Really tasted it? He couldn't remember. He went outside. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. People were walking to work. The world was beautiful. Had it always been this beautiful? Yes. But he had never noticed. He had been too busy, too distracted, too focused on someday. He walked, just walked, through the park, past the coffee shop where he used to grab coffee without tasting it, past the bookstore he had always meant to browse, past the art gallery he had always meant to visit. And today he went in. He spent 2 hours in that gallery, looking at paintings, really looking, not rushing, not checking his phone, just being there with the article, with the colors, with the beauty, and he felt alive, more alive than he had felt in years, and that became his practice. Every day, he asked himself, what do I want to do today? If this is one of my last days, how do I want to spend it? And then he did that thing. Not someday, today. He called his parents, drove to their house, spent the afternoon with them, really with them, listening to their stories, telling them he loved them. His father, a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, cried. I wish we had done this more, his father said. We still can, David replied. We have today. He reconnected with old friends, people he had lost touch with, people he had meant to call, people he had said, We should get together sometime too. But never did. He called them. He saw them. He told them what they meant to him, because there was no more time for some time. There was only now. He quit his job, the one he hated, the one he was doing for some day, and he started writing. That book he had always wanted to write. Not a great book, not a published book, just his book, his story, his thoughts, his life on paper, something that would remain when he was gone. He started painting, badly at first, terribly actually, but he didn't care, because he wasn't painting for success. He wasn't painting for approval. He was painting because he wanted to, because it made him feel alive, because the act of creating, it mattered, even if no one ever saw it. He traveled, not to exotic places. He didn't have the energy for that anymore, but to the ocean, just 2 hours away, a place he had always meant to visit. He sat on the beach, watched the waves, felt the sand between his toes, and he understood this was enough. This moment, this simple, ordinary, extraordinary moment, this was enough. He also started volunteering at a hospice with other people who were dying, and there, surrounded by death, he found life, real life, because everyone there understood. There was no pretending, no someday, just today, just now, just this precious, fleeting, beautiful moment. He met a woman there. Her name was Rachel. She was 32, also dying, also learning to live. They became friends, close friends, and then something more. They fell in love. Not the kind of love that plans for decades, but the kind of love that exists fully, right now, today, this moment. "Isn't it sad," David's sister asked him, "to fall in love when you're both dying? To find something beautiful, just to lose it?" David smiled, a real smile. "No," he said, "it's not sad. It's perfect. Because we both know. We both understand. This is temporary, all of it. So we don't waste a single moment. We don't fight about stupid things. We don't hold grudges. We don't postpone saying, 'I love you.' We just love. Fully, completely, now." 6 months passed. David was still alive, weaker, in more pain, but alive, and more alive than he had ever been before the diagnosis, because he had learned the secret that most people never learn until it's too late. That life is not measured in years, it's measured in moments, in presence, in love, in connection, in beauty noticed, in coffee tasted, in sunsets watched, in hands held, in words spoken, in art created, in life lived. One evening, David and Rachel sat together, watching the sunset, both of them very weak now, both of them near the end, and Rachel said, "I'm grateful." "Grateful?" David asked. "For dying?" "No," Rachel said, "grateful for knowing, for having time to prepare, to say goodbye, to live fully before the end. Most people don't get that. They die suddenly, or they die having never really lived. We got to live, really live. That's a gift." David understood. He felt it too, the strange gratitude, because his diagnosis, his death sentence, it had become his liberation. It had freed him from the tyranny of someday, from the illusion of infinite time, from the postponement of life. He started writing letters, like Elena had done to his parents, to his sister, to his friends, to Rachel. Letters about what he had learned, about what dying had taught him about living. In one letter, he wrote, "Death is not the enemy. Death is the teacher. It teaches us that time is limited, that moments matter, that love cannot be postponed, that life must be lived now, not someday, not later, now." In another letter, he wrote, "I used to think I was unlucky to get cancer at 28, to die young. But now, I think I might be lucky, because I got a warning. I got time to prepare, to live consciously, to love completely, to say goodbye properly. Most people don't get that. They think they have time. And then, suddenly, they don't." David died on a Tuesday, 9 months after his diagnosis. Rachel was there, holding his hand. His parents were there, his sister, his best friend. And David, he was at peace. His last words were simple, beautiful, true. He looked at everyone gathered around him and whispered, "Thank you for being here, for loving me, for letting me love you. I've lived, really lived, these last 9 months. I've lived more than I did in the 28 years before. I'm complete. I'm ready. Don't be sad. Be alive. Really alive. That's all I want. For you to be alive." And then he closed his eyes, and he was gone. At his funeral, his sister read from one of his letters, through tears, but also through smiles. She read, "Don't wait for a diagnosis to start living. Don't wait for death to teach you about life. Live now, love now. Say the things now, do the things now, because you don't have forever. None of us do. We have today, only today. Make it count." 3 stories, my friend. 3 people facing death. A warrior who learned to stop fearing it. A grandmother who learned to prepare for it. A young man who learned to live because of it. The Stoics understood something profound, something that most of us spend our whole lives avoiding. They understood that death is not the problem. The problem is living as if we have forever. The problem is postponing life. The problem is waiting for someday. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think, not to make you afraid, but to make you awake, alert, alive, present. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. Every day a complete life, every moment fully lived, nothing postponed, nothing left unsaid." Epictetus taught, "Don't fear death. Fear never beginning to live. That's the real tragedy. Not dying, but never truly living, never being present, never saying the things, never doing the things, never loving completely." So, tonight, as you drift asleep, I want you to think about something. If tomorrow was your last day, how would you live it? What would you say? Who would you call? What would you do? What would matter? And then, when you wake up tomorrow, live that way, not with fear, not with dread, but with clarity, with purpose, with presence. Because tomorrow might not be your last day, but it might be. For any of us, any day. Say the things you need to say to your parents, your children, your friends, your partner. Don't wait. Don't assume you'll have time later. Say them now, today. Do the things you've been postponing. Write the book, paint the painting, take the trip, learn the skill. Not someday, today. Start today. Forgive the people you've been holding grudges against. Let it go. Life is too short. Your time is too precious. Their time is too precious. Forgive. Move on. Be free. Love the people in your life. Fully, completely. Without holding back. Without protecting yourself. Without waiting for the perfect moment. Love them now. Today. This moment. And be here. Really here. Taste your coffee. Feel the sun. Listen to the birds. Watch the sunset. Touch the people you love. Be present. Be alive. Be awake. Because that's what death teaches us, that life is precious. That time is limited. That moments matter. That love cannot wait. That presence is everything. The Stoics practiced something called memento mori. Remember death, not morbidly, not with fear, but with clarity, with gratitude, with presence. They kept skulls on their desk, rings with death imagery, daily reminders that this is temporary, all of it, and that makes it precious. When you remember you're going to die, everything changes. The petty arguments seem silly. The grudges seem pointless. The fear of taking risks dissolves, because what's the worst that can happen? You'll die. You were going to die anyway. We all are. So why not live first? Why not really live? Cassius learned this on the battlefield, that accepting death, it freed him to live. Elena learned this in her final months, that preparing for death, it allowed her to love completely. David learned this from his diagnosis, that knowing about death, it taught him how to live. And now, you know it too. You've heard their stories. You've learned their lessons. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you go back to living as if you have forever? Or will you wake up tomorrow and live as if it might be your last day? I hope you choose the latter, my friend. I hope you choose presence. I hope you choose love. I hope you choose life, real life, awake life, conscious life. Because that's what we're here for, not to avoid death, but to really live before we die. Sleep now. Rest peacefully. And when you wake, remember Cassius. Remember Elena. Remember David. Remember that your time is limited, and let that knowledge not frighten you, but free. you.